they've been the most consistent, best performed team in the world for the last few years, and they're probably underestimated still at this World Cup.
Morgan, you're over in France right now. You lived there for 5 years when you're playing footy. Can you give us a bit of an idea of what French fans are actually like?
I'll tell you what, there's a lot of whistling. So they're not happy with something, there's whistling going on. So that's when you know they're unhappy with the referee. Look, they're passionate, they're tribal. I was lucky enough to play for Dax. The first time I got to France, the first club I played for was Dax down in the southwest. So a tribal team, a traditional rugby region. And it's all about the identity of the town that was the rugby team. So it was great to experience that and then end up in Paris playing for Stade Francais, which is very much a cosmopolitan team. So what you'll find is the two-sided pressure. I'm sure we'll talk about this blockbuster opening match, but France will be empowered by the pressure, but the noise and if a game's tight, that pressure can go the other way and actually hurt sometimes French performance. The big story about the French teams that I played for is that we went away once and played in Lyon, and we lost, and I was filthy. So first away game I'd played, I wanted to play well, I wanted the team to do well, and I thought our team was going to do a lap of honour. They were that happy after we lost because we got a losing bonus point. And they go, we never get this. This is great. So away from home, they don't care. At home, if you lose, mate, you can't get served in the local boulangerie. You can't get a croissant the next day. So that's the big one. The mindset around being at home is all important.
France-New Zealand opening match in the Rugby World Cup. Probably the best opening match in any World Cup across any sport. Two questions. Does it really matter in the scheme of the final who's going to win this opening match, because you think they're both going to go through, and who do you actually see winning it?
Yeah, I actually think I said exactly the same thing. I think it's the best Rugby World Cup pool match there's ever been. What a huge match. The funny thing is, yes, the match is huge, but for the loser, there's not a huge amount of consequences. France, of course, want momentum. I think they're the ones that, when we talk about pressure or expectation, they'll feel it a bit because they'll think, well, we're confident. Our team is confident. We're going well. The public are expectant. They actually need to deliver. Where if you're in New Zealand, you can have a good hit out. You can see where you're at. But if they lose, well, they're still going to go through. It's a pool where they'll all go through. Those two teams, they'll go through comfortably. Whether you come first or second, you don't know whether it's better to be on top of the pool or not until you know what happens with the South Africa, Ireland, Scotland pool. So it's a really strange game in that regard. I can see France winning this match, but not winning the World Cup. I can see New Zealand being better set up to win the World Cup because, look, their eyes are on a month away. They're building nicely. They've got some injuries. Lomax, no. Frizzell, no. Retallick, no. And, of course, Geordie Barrett. So I can see maybe the French, off the back of emotion and everything, getting up in this game. But I do consider New Zealand probably better equipped and well-placed to go further into the tournament.
Can you talk to me a little bit about the expectations, how they differ from your group stage all the way through to the knockout stage? It's always been assumed that essentially they're two different tournaments. Is that still the case in 2023?
It has been traditionally. I think the rise of the teams that I hate calling it the tier 2 teams, or those Samoa, Georgia, Fiji, these sorts of teams where you would have thought, okay, we'll get through the pool. There's one big match in the pool. And don't forget, normally there's one big match in the pool to decide who tops the pool. And in previous World Cups, topping the pool has been crucial to avoid another big team. If you Wales and the Wallabies, for example, in Japan, that was a massive match to decide who played who. Neither team wanted to come up against England in the quarters. The Wallabies lose to Wales. They face a good England team in the quarters and get blown away. It's not like that at this World Cup. There is a difference between England and Argentina for, say, Wallabies, Fiji, and Wales, but not a huge difference. And if you're on the other side of the draw with the Big Five, it doesn't matter. You're in trouble anyway at quarters time. So it's a really different pool stage. One, there's that. It doesn't really matter whether you top your pool. It matters whether you get out. But also, there's less gimmies. There are some, of course. But, if you're Australia, Georgia this weekend, no gimme. They led Scotland 6-0 at halftime. Yes, got blown away late. They've only lost 2 games in the last 18. Last just over a year, they've beaten Wales, beaten Italy. That's not a gimme game where you can, get your plays right, get some confidence, maybe rotate your squad. So there's less gimme games in pools, but there's also less importance around how you go through. And then, as you mentioned, the comp starts again. Once you get out of your pool, it's 3 games to win a World Cup. You used to have to play 2.5 good games to win a World Cup. Now, if you're Ireland or South Africa, you've got to play 6 almost. You've got to play some good footy all the way through.
Seems to me like Eddie Jones's obstacle is twofold. He's trying to change the list, but he's also trying to change the tactics. Both hard to do on their own, incredibly hard to do when they're combined, which he's trying to do right now. Results aside, how do you feel that Eddie's actually progressing in terms of what he said he's going to deliver for the Wallabies?
Well, I couldn't agree more with what you're saying. And there shouldn't be enough time. You shouldn't be able to do what he's trying to do in enough time. And I think what he's done around selection, first and foremost, he's gone, well, I've got a group of players who are used to performing to a certain level. Have they got the exponential improvement in them that I need to see? No. These young guys, the players he didn't pick are probably here. The young guys he did pick are here. But can they go to there? That's what he's betting on. So I think that's the big thing around that selection. And then the way he wants to play, he's really trying to, he's an innovator, Eddie, as you know, he's trying to be ahead of the game. So really changing some of the structured play the Wallabies are used to. And as we all know, skill development, acquisition, learning new plays, all that, there's a dip before the rise in performance. The timing's going to be interesting. I've seen lots of positives in some of the content in patches. First half in Dunedin, first 20 minutes in Pretoria even. Lots of the content early against France last week, especially last week, that just didn't convert from that pressure and good content into points. And then, of course, the greatest feedback you get is the scoreboard, and it's been poor. It's just not been good enough for what he's after. So it would have been nice to win a tight one against Argentina on the way through, to beat New Zealand in Dunedin. They wouldn't have had to play very differently to get those results. They resist Argentina at the end. They win that one. Quade has a sort of a 4-on-2. The knock on. Wallabies probably get worst case territory where they close out the game. Best case, they score a try from that situation. And from the ensuing scrum, Mwanga kicks the 3-pointer that wins the game. So it wasn't the Wallabies, content through 80 minutes that cost them those matches. They could be 2 from 5. We could be thinking very differently with the same amount of and quality rugby played. So I hate the 0-5, but that's probably not the telling stat around it. The worry is, above all, is just it could be a year to 18 months too soon.
So we're traditionally a rugby powerhouse. We have lost 5 on the trot. Expectations aren't particularly high for us. Obviously, we want to win the World Cup. But for you, what do you see as a pass mark for the Wallabies in the World Cup this year?
Semi's a success.
Yeah,
if they get to the semis, it's a success. It means you've successfully navigated Fiji and Wales. You've beaten England or Argentina. That's success. And few of those teams are above us in the rankings. Whatever you think of the world rankings, but it's a good gauge of sort of where you're at. So winning the quarter is a success. Losing the quarter is a lot of failure, but a negative result. That's as simple as that. That's the game, the deciding game of the quarter. And in terms of making the semis, it's great for the game. It's great for the Australian game because you make a semi. It's a great week. Yes, anything can happen. Whoever you're going to play of the big 4 or 5 on the other side, you'll be an underdog. But as we know, anything can happen. And then you lose the semi, you play the 3rd and 4th, and you've come top 4 in the world at a World Cup when you're coming in ranking, 9th? So I think making the semis would be a resounding success, notwithstanding the beneficial run to get there.
It's interesting you say the semi-final. We had Angus Bell on the Ebbs and Flows podcast a few weeks ago, and he was speaking about the semi-final, about how they think that is achievable, but also a really good yardstick for them.
And I suppose the danger there is that if you're a player, you don't want them, they win the quarter, we're all happy. We don't want them to go, oh, we made the semi. Don't miss the opportunity. I remember 2003, I was 21 years old. We were, a Wilkinson drop goal away from being world champions. And there was we'll get them next time, or we'll get another opportunity. And the quarter in 07, we were bundled out by England. So that was, you think you got another one coming, and you don't. I think Angus, with his injuries, he'll realise how fickle the game can be. So a good run through, yes, underdone, but the semis will be a success. But if they get there, they've got to make sure, geez, we're 2 games away here. We've got to make sure we have a crack. Yes, that's in weeks to come, and maybe when you and I have a chat again, Chris, we can talk about that. But that's the big mindset for the Wallabies too. And that's what Eddie's been. He's been surprisingly bullish in trying to win, because he knows the players have to think like that. The players actually shouldn't be thinking make the semi, win the quarter, get through the pools. They should be thinking win the World Cup, because you never know what happens. You turn up on a semi, there's a red card in the first 20, suddenly you're 15 versus 14 for an hour in a World Cup semi-final. I remember what happened with Wales when they made it. That's what hurt, those sorts of things. So, it's an interesting back end, but these pool stages, you don't snub the pool stage because there's so much intrigue around who's going to finish where.
So Eddie Jones speaks a lot about the Wallaby way. Now, a lot of people have weighed in on this. Jason Riles said it's more about playing to our aerial strength, which we've seen a lot of in the past few games. Angus Bell, who I said about on the podcast recently, said it's more about our power runners, our incredible fitness, and then again, playing to our strengths out wide. For you, what is the Wallaby way?
It's a strange phrase that I don't particularly like, to be honest. I think every team, you go to every school, it's the Joey's way, the King's way, the Newington way. Then you go to Brisbane, it's the Nudgy way. You go the Brothers way, the Randwick way. Like, what does that even mean? It's funny. You can't always have your way that the players have to adhere to. The great thing about what Rilesy's saying is they're talking about what the group's strengths are. And I think they found, with the tries scored last week off kicks, they found one of the crucial trends in world rugby around attacking kicks and winning the kick battle. And two, it played to their strengths. We saw Suliasi Vunivalu. We saw the use of him. So, look, I think there's got to be an Australianism to it. Australia always been an innovative and smart team. Have we been like that recently? I'm not so sure. Still got to be tough and physical and hard workers. One thing about Eddie Jones' coach teams, they're going to be hard workers. And they've trained right through, as a few teams have. I think that All Blacks result against South Africa was a little bit of a result of, one, South Africa being outstanding, but two, New Zealand training through that block. And Australia have trained through every one of the games they've played. They've freshened up for the first time this week. So I think they want to have good ball in play time. I don't think they'll be obsessed with possession, but they want to have better possession than they had in the first 4 games. And then what I think they want to do is, as you mentioned, win collisions, but then be smart about trying to look for space, either run, pass, or kick.
If you're asking your casual fan in the street who's going to win the Rugby World Cup, they're probably going to say the All Blacks. It's always been the All Blacks. However, it's a little bit different this time round. You go back to 2019, South Africa and Ireland have won half of their games against the All Blacks since then. But can you put these 3 teams in order for me in terms of what a threat they are to the Wallabies? New Zealand, France, and then the reigning world champions, South Africa.
I'd probably go New Zealand, South Africa, France at the moment. That marquee performance from South Africa just reminded us they're the oldest team here, and you can win with an experienced old team. It's been done. We've seen it. I do think New Zealand might have another gear in them that we haven't seen. South Africa will win knockout footy games. They'll occupy territory. They won't need a huge amount of possession. They can score breakout turnover tries, unstructured tries, and they can accrue points, and they can physically batter you, and they have depth. I think this World Cup, more than any with head knocks and HIAs and suspensions and all those sorts of things coming, I think depth will be crucial. And New Zealand, South Africa have the best depth. I do see France being a team that, if Dupont goes down, if Jalibert goes down again, they start to go deep into their reserves, their quality. And then Ireland, you still can't forget about them. They're a weird one. Are we assuming that they're going to do what Ireland always does and underperform at a World Cup? But, gee, they've been impressive, consistently impressive. It's a well-set-up union. The Leinster crew into Ireland, the shared knowledge that they have. I think it's funny, but they've been the most consistent, best-performed team in the world for the last few years, and they're probably underestimated still at this World Cup.
Just before we let you go, I want to circle back to something you said at the start of the conversation. So the Wallabies were very young, very inexperienced. 20 of the 33-man squad are under 26. We've had 43 debutants since the 2019 World Cup, same as England. It maybe feels like we're really early for the next World Cup cycle, but definitely too late for this World Cup cycle. Now, there's still a lot of upsides in that. What do you think will be the big takeaways for the Wallabies for the 2023 World Cup?
I think lots of them, you mentioned it, haven't been to World Cup, but also not a lot of test footy. We are the youngest team in the World Cup. So what they'll take away is what it takes to be a test footballer. Lots of them don't know whether they've just debuted, haven't debuted yet, single-figure test matches. They don't know what it takes to be a test footballer yet, and what the week in, week out consistent behaviours are. And whatever you think of Eddie, he can teach them that. He will teach them what the week looks like, what the work that needs to be done to be a test footballer is, how to be self-aware in your game. What are your weaknesses? How are you improving them? What are your strengths? How do you continue to utilize and benefit from your strengths? What do you bring? So I think from this block of time, and that's, we've seen it with the tier 2 teams. They do well in World Cups because they've just spent lots of time together. The Wallabies now, they'll benefit from the time together, and players will walk out of here for a well-earned break over summer, and they'll know what it takes to be a Wallaby.